Hello, and welcome to this Wednesday reflection as we near the end of 2020. As I've said before, when my turn comes round to deliver one of these reflections, I have a look at the church calendar and the lectionary to help me choose a subject. It didn't work for me this time, nothing sprang to mind. Then, sitting in church at 8 o'clock on Sunday last, Chris Addison led the intercessions, and he quoted the text from the parish diary. I rejoiced with those who said to me, let us go to the house of the Lord. That's a lovely text to reflect on when you sat out in the dark on a very cold morning to go to church. But the text is one of my favourites. It's from one of the songs of ascent, Psalm 122, verse 1. Some time ago, Anne gave me a copy of the complete Jewish Bible, as translated by David Stern. I like to think that this translation, based on the Hebrew words of the Tanakh, and as read by many English-speaking Jews today, gets me close to the words that Jesus and his family would have been using at the time. So I often have a look at the words in Stern's translation. A Song of Ascent by David. I was glad when they said to me, the house of Adonai, let's go. Our feet were already standing at your gates, Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim built as a city, fostering friendship and unity. The tribes have gone up there, the tribes of Adonai, as a witness to Israel, to give thanks to the name of Adonai. For there the thrones of justice were set up, the thrones of the house of David. Pray for Shalom in Yerushalayim. May those who love you prosper. May Shalom be within your ramparts, prosperity in your palaces. For the sake of my family and friends, I say, Shalom be within you. For the sake of the house of Adonai our God, I will seek your well-being. The opening of this psalm is so joyous. I was glad when they said to me, the house of Adonai, let's go. Mosaic law dictated that people should go to the temple 3 times a year, for the feast of the Passover, for weeks, and for ingathering. And we might assume that Joseph and his family would do this. How satisfying that, for those 3 times a year, there was such a choice of songs to sing. There are 15 songs of ascent, as they appear in our Bibles, Psalms 120 to 134. I can imagine how familiar they would have become to the villagers as they made their 3 times a year pilgrimage. How exciting it must have been. The Jewish faithful gathering in their towns to make the pilgrimage together. They would be thinking about the house of the Lord in Jerusalem, the temple where the Ark of the Covenant lives, the throne of the Almighty King. Going to Jerusalem meant going to God's capital, God's palace. Jerusalem, such an incredibly special place for them. At the beginning of the psalm, we read a song of ascents by David. When it was written, the house of the Lord was a dream, an ambition, because the ark was in a tent in Jerusalem, which David had pitched for it, waiting for the temple to be built. Yet David, assuming it was him, writes this psalm as though the building already exists. The Bible tells us of one such journey that Jesus made to the temple. It's in chapter 2 of Luke, verses 41 and 42. There we read that in Jesus' 12th year, the family went up for the Passover. What excitement in the household! They're going to Jerusalem for the festival. They're leaving the humdrum life of the village and field and the carpenter's shop, and they're going to Jerusalem, the beloved holy city. Imagine the whole village setting out together on their journey. I've been to Jerusalem twice, once as a tourist and once as a pilgrim, both times setting out from Cyprus, as so many Jews did after 1945. As you approach Jerusalem and see the dome of the rock on the skyline, your heart lifts, your soul sings. For me, it was the knowledge that I was visiting the place where Jesus had walked, where I would be standing on the ground he had stood on. For Jesus and his family, there was no golden dome. What we do know is that some 15 or 20 years earlier, before Jesus' birth, Herod had adorned the temple that the returning Babylonian exiles had built some 500 years before. So at the time Jesus was going to Jerusalem as a boy on pilgrimage with his parents, the sight of the temple on Mount Zion would have been a source of awe to everyone. There would have been nothing as splendid as the temple in Jesus' normal life. In verse 2, the pilgrims are already standing at the gates of the city, not the open spaces of the villages they came from, but in the close-knit confines of a bustling city, full of pilgrims like themselves, making their 3 times a year visit. But Jerusalem was not just somewhere they went to worship. It was the capital of the nation, the center of justice. And this is reflected in the psalm. In verse 3, Jerusalem, fostering friendship and unity. Is that what the Jews sailing in from Cyprus had in mind? I hope so. But how did that hope become so tarnished in the Israel of today? And again, in verses 6 and 7, pray for shalom in Jerusalem. May shalom be within your ramparts. How God must shake his head when he sees what we are doing to his world. On my pilgrimage from Cyprus to the Holy Land with Bishop Michael Lewis, who's currently Archbishop of Jerusalem and the Middle East, we visited Bethlehem, and I saw the way the state of Israel is treating the non-Jews in Palestine. Motorways that only Jews can drive on, cutting through the Palestinian countryside. A 12-foot high metal fence cutting an eye hospital off from its chapel in the valley below. Israeli settlements built on Palestinian land dominating the skyline. Testimony from an eye surgeon who'd been prevented from leaving Palestine, even for conferences abroad, for more than 5 years. Some of God's chosen people, meant to be a blessing to all the other nations of the world, treating non-Jews so shamelessly. Some Jews and their sympathizers denouncing those who condemn the actions of the state of Israel and support the cause of the Palestinians. Oh, that the words of Psalm 122, verses 3, 6, and 7 were being lived out today. But in the meantime, for the sake of my family and friends, I say, Shalom be within you. For the sake of the house of Adonai our God, I will seek your well-being. Stay safe and have a happy and prosperous new year. Looking forward to talking to you again in the new year. Bye.